And hello, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for the Hawke Partner Showcase webinar. Today, our partner of choice is Ben from Partcl. Ben, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Partcl?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the head of partnerships at Partcl. Been over here since July. We've been around as a company since 2020, so kind of a COVID baby. And then in terms of like what Partcl is, we are an e-commerce data platform designed to help e-commerce brands with product development, product research, and also pricing optimization using AI.
Love it. Love it. And we also have G here from our very own Hawke team, EVP of Marketing. And I just have to say, personal omnichannel superstar. You want to introduce yourself, G, and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hey, I'm G. I'm the EVP of Marketing at Hawke Media. It's my second stint at Hawke. I was here from 2015 to 2020, left as the EVP of Marketing, and came back because I love this company so much. Love the mission to create accessibility to great marketing to all brand owners out there because they deserve it. So excited to be here with Ben, our trusted partner and esteemed colleague, and ready to talk about Omnichannel.
I love it. This is going to be so great. I got two of the greats here with us today. Well, I say that we just kick it right into the questions and get into it. If you don't know, Omnichannel is essentially using multiple different platforms and resources to accomplish one specific goal. And today, because Ben here is the expert in e-commerce, we're going to go ahead and use that as our lens for these questions, gentlemen. So the first one, why don't you describe, G, go ahead, what Omnichannel is and why it's necessary to a brand, and then Ben, you take it from there.
Yeah, sure. I would say, omnichannel marketing, put quite simply, is just a brand's presence across multiple channels. This includes your website, mobile apps, social media channels, email marketing. It can be both online and offline. And I think essentially it's just sort of the integration, coordination, and cooperation of the various channels a brand is using to interact with its consumers. I think the goal with omnichannel marketing is just to create a consistent brand presence across your online and offline channels. In terms of why it's necessary and its benefits, I would say the first aspect of it is because it's multi-touch. It allows retailers and online brands to achieve more visibility and relevance to drive their traffic and sales. I think it allows you to integrate your digital touch points. And I think, the most important thing that's paramount is just that it improves the customer experience and it provides more channels for customer purchases, whether it's on mobile, web, or in stores.
So I'll jump in here. I am by no means a marketing expert. So I actually have a question for you, G. What would you say, like in terms of making sure you have a consistent brand across these different platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all these different social platforms out there? What do you see as like the biggest difficulty in ensuring that you have that consistent brand image across all of those different platforms?
Yeah, I think the biggest difficulty is just, having like a lack of brand or messaging. I think a lot of times when you have a really messy or scattered brand and you don't have brand guidelines, if you don't have a consistent style guide, a lot of times for a user or a customer, it can be kind of confusing because you're seeing one creative theme in one area and one message in one platform, and then it almost seems like a different brand coming from another platform. So I think just like cohesion and consistency is the biggest challenge when it comes to an omnichannel approach. And I think the other part of it too is just like really looking at how different platforms are supposed to be used and really making sure that you're making content that stays true to your brand spirit, but is actually consistent with the channel you're using. So for example, the other day I was on TikTok, and like anytime I've advertised on TikTok, I always use creator driven content or like user generated content from a real human being. I'll serve a TikTok ad the other day from a brand that actually I do trust. And it was just really off-putting because they were using like, it wasn't like an animation. It wasn't like a person or human driven creative. It was an ad that really felt like it should have belonged on Facebook. And it certainly stood out, but it's definitely not how I would use TikTok. It's not the content I would expect to see. So they almost lost that touch point for me, right? Like that touch point didn't serve its intended purpose because I didn't engage with the brand because they just used the platform in a very strange way,
Yeah, I think about me specifically, like really the only social platform I'm on is Instagram.
Right.
And whenever I see brand specific content on Instagram, it's very much like about the product. And it's like from the viewpoint of the company. Whereas my wife lives on TikTok and it's all user generated content. Like if I were to see something that I see on Instagram on TikTok, I'd be pretty surprised.
It would be confusing, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think it would serve its intended purpose, right? And so I think with omnichannel, like platform is important, but I think the other thing to understand is really funnel position, right? Like where like TikTok for me is like great for brand awareness. Sometimes it can be used for direct response. But if you think about email, for example, right, it's like how often do you actually like take the time to read a cold email and convert on it? It doesn't happen very frequently. Like a lot of times someone skims through it, realizes it's spam. You don't know this contact. You don't trust this brand or this organization. So I think a lot of times it's how you use the platform too. Like if you're using a top of funnel channel, understand that like your goal is to get a brand interaction, right? Like a vanity metric, a video completion, a click, right? It's a handshake. It's an introduction to your brand. But if you're doing something that's like 10 paragraphs long with a creative that's intended to convert someone, you know, you probably need to look at your omnichannel approach and understand, okay, like where does this platform fall in this funnel? And what am I ultimately trying to get the customer to do? What do I want the customer to feel? And I feel like that's how you kind of make omnichannel work, is understanding like the buyer's actual journey and really have a focus on the customer throughout an omnichannel experience.
Yeah. Right. And also just for people who don't know, if you want to explain a little bit about top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, and how it relates to e-commerce, that would be great.
Yeah, definitely. Like in terms of funnel, like, you know, the way that Eric Huberman, our CEO, describes it is awareness, nurturing, and trust, right? And so like what your top of the funnel is really just about awareness. For me, it's about, you know, if you think about any relationship, right, it always starts with that first interaction, that first handshake, and that first conversation. You know, nurturing someone is really just about, you know, driving more like interest and consideration for your products. And then that trust piece is where you actually convert them and, you know, gain a new customer or gain a new subscriber or whatever your outcome is. Right. And so, you know, thinking about a funnel, it's just like a relationship from the time that you first meet someone until, you know, marrying that person.
I love that. I love that. And also I wanted to ask you, Ben, a little bit about that, because I know that you guys have at Partcl, you guys kind of take the information that we get from all funnels in order to make those decisions that are helpful for e-commerce experts and marketing experts. So do you want to talk a little bit about that process and how Partcl is able to obtain that data so that you can make good decisions for your middle of funnel and bottom of funnel?
Yeah, so we do have a tool. It's called a retargeting tool. I'll be honest, it's not one of the main things that we do, but essentially the tool is a pixel that goes on the website, and what it's doing is it's tracking activity across the site. And the nice thing about it too is like it's not cookie based. So essentially I can actually split out between my current customers, so people who have purchased from me before, and also people who have never purchased from me based on the Partcl network. So essentially like the brands we work with, they opt into this service. So we essentially have this giant pool of data, IP addresses and email addresses. So that way, as people from different brands are going to different sites and looking at different products, you can see if they viewed a specific product like 3 or more times, which then could inform some of your marketing decisions. So if I have like a huge audience that's looked at a pair of pants 3 or more times, I could actually upload that directly into Facebook and run a targeted ad. So essentially, you're able to target people who have shown buying intent by viewing a product multiple times, and then being able to market specifically to them for a specific product. So it's high intent buyers kind of bottom of funnel.
Love that. I love that. And that also leads us to our next question, which is specifically, what is the biggest obstacle or mistake that you both have seen in the e-commerce industry, whether it come to selecting product types, to just advertising those products and marketing those products effectively? I'll let you start, G.
Yeah, when it comes to marketing, so my background, you know, I started at Hawke Media on the services side. So I was managing, you know, several different clients at once. And I think there's 3 things that I look at in terms of what mistakes that a lot of founders and heads of marketing make. And I would say the first thing is inconsistency. You know, increasing your ad budget, decreasing your ad budget, you know, changing your messaging too frequently, running a lot of A/B tests versus not running any at all. I think just having a lack of clarity into what it is that you're trying to do. And then also from a brand standpoint, not having clear-cut messaging and like a real purpose statement, a real vision for like what it is that you're trying to accomplish, like who you are, what you do, what product or service you provide, and what difference it makes in the customer's life. So just from top to bottom inconsistency. I would say the second thing is just either focusing on too many metrics at one time or just like obsessing over one metric. So going back to that funnel example, like I know like I had a lot of clients who were running like very like full funnel campaigns, and they would look at any campaign we were running and just, you know, determine whether they wanted to keep the campaign or kill it just based off of what their customer acquisition cost or how many, like what sales volume looked like. And a lot of times, like going back to that funnel example, it's like if you're running a top of funnel campaign, your goal is really brand awareness metrics. It's not driving sales, right? Like those are mid and lower funnel campaigns. That's what their intention, what their purpose serves. And I'd say the other thing is just putting all of their eggs in one basket. A lot of times I've seen the mistake where, you know, a brand will be running ads on TikTok or Facebook or Google. It'll be performing really, really well. And they decide to only use that channel instead of leverage an omni-channel approach. Right. And I think the idea is that like when you put all of your eggs in one basket, right, like let's say Facebook, I've been in this situation with clients before where they didn't have an omni-channel approach. Facebook is running really, really well, but then there's a glitch in, you know, business manager, ads manager, so they can't run ads for a while. Or there's a hurricane in Miami or in Florida, and that's where their biggest target demographic is. And so they're only running ads in Florida while there's a hurricane on Facebook, and they just have a week of awful sales, and then their business's bottom line is really, really impacted. So I would say those three things to recap: putting all of your eggs in one basket, either obsessing over one metric or obsessing over every metric, and then also just brand and marketing inconsistency are kind of the three obstacles or mistakes that I've seen people make.
Yeah, I'll talk about two on my end. First one being product development. Obviously, like e-com, it's a very crowded space, and so you want to make sure that you're launching winning products. But I saw a stat recently from Harvard Business Review. It was like something like 90% of products fail within the first year, which is a pretty depressing statistic. So like whenever I talk to e-commerce brands, like we talk about different ways that they're currently doing product research and validating the products that they're going to launch. And it ranges, right? Like I've talked to brands who go to like a dancewear, they go to a dancewear competition, see what people are wearing. I've heard of brands like big brands going to Nordstrom and just looking at what's on the rack and just kind of sitting there throughout the day to see what people are picking up. Looking at competitor sites to get product ideas. There's a lot of different ways to do it. But a lot of it can be based off of intuition and gut feeling. So I think about one of our customers who's an athletic wear brand. They saw two of their competitors launch a similar product. So they decided to go all in and produce a similar product as well. And they lost $300K on that decision. So really, really expensive mistake. And when they hopped into Partcl, they were able to see that their competitors, two things. One, they didn't order near as much inventory as they assumed they had. And two, it actually was not performing as well as they had anticipated. Because if you go to a bestseller page on an e-commerce store, it's not necessarily a bestseller. It may just be a product that they're trying to move, trying to get rid of inventory. So whenever they jumped in, they were able to see that and realize they could have saved $300,000. So I guess the importance behind that is making sure that whenever you're going through your product development process, like the ideation phase, the validation phase, ensuring that you're using real quantitative data from the market to make sure that you're not making a huge $300,000 mistake. Second piece of this is pricing. So another one of our customers in the jewelry space, just like out of nowhere decided, I saw some competitors were raising prices. So he decided to raise his product prices by $5, like every single product. And there was no decrease in demand. So essentially it was just $5 per unit straight to the bottom line, which had a huge impact because he's doing thousands and thousands of sales on a monthly basis. So pricing products can be tough. Like the typical way I see it done is, you know, you change the price and you see what happens to demand for a couple of weeks, then you change it again, see what happens. It's a very iterative, slow process. And I think most e-commerce brands understand this, but pricing is just so important. I mean, it has an immediate effect on your bottom line. And that's once again where data can come into play because, you know, obviously I'm going to talk about Partcl because I work for Partcl, but like being able to see whenever a competitor changes prices is great. But what's even better is being able to see what happens to demand. So in terms of AI, since we kind of talked about that at the beginning, being able to use AI to go through that historical data on price changes and on changes in demand with those price changes to help you pick an optimal price for a product can be immediate ROI and have a huge impact on the bottom line. So to recap, like two biggest things, like developing top selling products is hard. And the more data you can have to validate your decisions, the better off you'll be. And two, pricing is just so important and can have an immediate effect on your bottom line. So ensuring that you have tools in your arsenal to price your products effectively and quickly can have a huge impact.
Wow. Just listening to you both talk about these topics is just so refreshing because absolutely, like I agree 100%. And also, yeah, Ben, it's so difficult to do a launch of any kind. I know that only from a marketing perspective, but I can imagine as a distributor and as a business owner making those decisions, how incredibly discouraging that would be to lose that much of my investment. Like that is terrible. And that statistic like absolutely scares me to the core. The idea like 90%, was that the number 90%?
Yeah.
That's insane. That is, to me, that makes absolutely no sense. And also so much sense at the same time, because I mean, the market is incredibly saturated right now. I mean, we saw it immediately after in 2020, like you were saying, you guys are a COVID baby company. And I love that. But we have seen that. And if anything, e-commerce has just been the marketplace of choice for most users now because they're comfortable with it. It's what they've been doing, it's what they're used to. And so from a marketing perspective with us at Hawke, it's definitely a challenge to figure out how we're supposed to position ourselves in a way that makes us stand out. So I absolutely love what you guys do at Partcl. Obviously, I'm a huge fan. I'm a little biased, but I think you guys are great. But I did want to ask you again, like we know what happened in 2020, right? Like, that was a radical shift for all of us in the marketing space. But omnichannel marketing with all of those uses for e-commerce, placing those on Instagram, placing that stuff, having products that reach people on the right platforms seems to be here to stay. So do you feel like that approach and the need for the products that you guys have at Partcl and the resources that we have at Hawke, do you think that'll continue to be important in the next few years, or what do you foresee happening there? And I think that I'll ask Ben first this time.
Yeah. Once again, not necessarily a strong point of mine in terms of omnichannel, but I can say from a consumer, I mean, I am a consumer, so I can help with that aspect. I would say yes. And one of the big reasons too, I think, is obviously like tech companies are in the news right now for not so great reasons. Some trips to Congress and so on and so forth. So I think you have more and more consumers thinking about like the different platforms that they're on. Some people find certain things more important than others. So like, some people may not want to be on Facebook just because of personal reasons, right? So maybe they're on TikTok or something like that. They're on different platforms. Not everyone's using every single social platform out there. Like I said, I use Instagram and LinkedIn, I guess would be another one. Those are really the only two social platforms that I use. My wife does Instagram, she does Twitter, she does TikTok, but she doesn't do Facebook, right? So like different consumers are going to be on different platforms. And so my understanding, for me at least, is like, if you want to get me as a consumer, like that needs to be, you need to be putting a focus on every single platform out there so you can meet your customers where they are.
Yeah, I think kind of touching up on what Alyssa said, right? Like, I think we live in a post-pandemic world and the post-COVID world. And so I think like the marriage between online and offline is just more important than ever, because for years people were just used to buying things just online, especially for like consumer packaged goods and, specific verticals. But I think online marketing is more competitive and noisy now than ever. And it's really hard to stand out if you're only on one or two channels. We actually recently published our benchmark report Hawke AI did with Digital Marketer. And one of the things that really stood out to me was how expensive it is to advertise online these days. Like there's a pretty significant increase. And so I think if you're on a platform like Facebook, where the CPMs are just really, really high, and it's a very like Facebook and Instagram are very like mobile first, creative first platforms, it's going to be really, really difficult to stand out. So I think the omnichannel marketing approach is going to be really, really important the next few years, especially as AI and tech is becoming more of a priority for marketers and just leveraging AI and tech. So I think it's going to be really important to use both your creative resources, but also your AI and tech tools to integrate an omni-channel approach that you can lower your costs and just be where your customer is. I think the other part of it too is that it takes anywhere between 12 to 28 brand interactions or touch points before someone feels comfortable doing business with a new brand. So especially if you're a nascent brand and you're just now starting off, I know sometimes it's really, really difficult to spread the wealth and spread out that budget and invest in several different marketing channels when you're just trying to test the waters and you're going from product to marketing. But I think the earlier, the better, to just really understand what that customer journey looks like across multiple channels and to really optimize it for the customer, to just improve your sales velocity, and just get as much, data points as you can across all channels.
So a question for you, G. So my wife just found this new platform I think it's called Lemonade. It's like a Pinterest and Instagram, like mixture of a platform. I guess as you guys look at the different platforms out there, how do you decide like where to spend your dollars? Is Lemonade worth getting into, or would I stick with Facebook? Like, I'm sure it's different for each brand, but I'm just curious to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think it depends on a lot of things. I think sometimes, I'm a very data-driven marketer, but sometimes you just have to like use your intuition. And I just think you have to spend some time on the platform, understand how it's used, and just, ask yourself an honest question, like, would I convert off of this platform? Like, is this platform optimal for a buying experience? And I think the second thing is just using a data-driven approach, like understanding the platform, understanding the cost to leverage this thing, looking at case studies, right? Like Pinterest, for example, is something that can be really, really great for an e-commerce, marketer, right? Like there's a lot of great functionality, a lot of creative functionality. Attribution is, a work in progress. But for an agency like Hawke Media, like how would I use Pinterest, right? Like we work with a lot of clients in fashion and jewelry. Like maybe it makes sense to create some vision board, like themed board where we can promote sort of like our clients' best work and like, kind of piggyback off of their success to drive sales for them. But is that really going to work for us in terms of lead generation? I mean, it's possible. And I'm sure that some other agencies are using Pinterest really successfully. But for us in our business model, like intuitively, it just doesn't make sense. Whereas, something like TikTok, something would be really, really great for our clients. But for us, like unless we're pushing out videos with the objective of hiring a great new staff member, where we're doing a lot of culture driven videos and funny videos that really show off our culture and the way that we work, it's probably not going to be a great lead generation tool for us, at least, for mid-lower funnel. Like I can't imagine it's going to be a great direct response vehicle for us. So I think looking at other use cases and also just like intuitive sort of gut and feel is probably the best way to assess, like, can this work for me? And I think the last thing is it just depends on your objectives, right? Is that, again, TikTok for us could be great for brand awareness, but I don't know that we're going to have a video of Eric, in a cowboy hat riding a horse saying that it's the wild, wild west of e-commerce and you need like a cowboy marketing agency to do all this innovative stuff. I don't know if someone's going to look at that and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to give them 10, 20, 30 grand to run my Facebook ads. Like that just doesn't seem logical.
Yeah.
I love that example too, because now I'm dying to see that. Now I want to see, we should just get a list of all CEOs and they should just be in, John Wayne-esque situations and see if we can twist them in a marketing perspective. Love that, you guys. This is great. And this actually leads directly into my next question, which is, again, we're a post-COVID society. There are so many social media platforms. TikTok, at first, I remember sitting in a webinar, much like this one, where we were talking about why we didn't know if TikTok was going to be as big as Facebook. And in less than 3 months later, it was one of the #1 viewed platforms on the internet in total. So it was fantastic. And it became the #1. I think it beat Facebook for a very limited time, but it was very proud of that win. So, when you guys are making these decisions with omnichannel in our case and, in Ben's case and product distribution, what are the best platforms that you've seen for promotion of e-commerce? And also just on the side, what is the value for those? Like what goals specifically would you say, like this is a conversion driver, this is a brand awareness driver, things like that?
You want to go for this one or do you want me to take it?
You go ahead, G. I'll add some comments.
Yeah, sure. I think, look, if the goal is to drive traffic to site, like I think the best answer I can give you is that you really can use most channels to drive traffic to site. I think it really depends, like to Alyssa's point, like what is your ultimate goal, right? Are you trying to convert this traffic? Are you just trying to get a lot of cheap traffic to site? Because if you're trying to get a lot of cheap traffic to site, like TikTok CPMs are really, really solid. You can get a lot of web traffic there, but it might be more of a top of funnel play and not a direct response play. For me, my background's in paid media. So I've always seen that Facebook, Google, and Instagram are really great for driving high intent quality traffic to your website. I think the obvious answer here is if you're trying to get traffic to your website, Amazon probably isn't the best tool for you to use because people are going to buy directly on the page if they have buy box. But I think, Amazon is, an e-commerce powerhouse. Like you'll drive a lot of sales there. I guess another thing too is if you're trying to get traffic that's going to convert, like if you have really strong call to actions in promotional email campaigns, those can be really effective too. So you really can use any platform to drive traffic to your site. And I guess it really depends on if your goal is to convert that traffic or if it's very top of funnel traffic and eyeballs.
Yeah, I was going to say just from being a user, whenever my wife is always on TikTok showing me videos, I think of like Duolingo, kind of like promoting your culture, right? They have that big green bird doing crazy things on their TikTok videos. Like, so whenever I think of Duolingo, I think of like this fun brand, right? I don't know, I've never heard of anyone like purchasing a subscription to Duolingo through TikTok, but I personally on Instagram, I'll be completely honest. Like I tend to buy things a lot through Instagram. Like I'll see something super interesting from a brand I've never heard of, and I click on it, I go to the website, and like 9 times out of 10, I end up buying something. So like just from a user standpoint, like the buying process from Instagram is super easy. So like one, it gets in front of me. 2, I know it's going to be an easy process to buy something. So yeah, I would say like, I agree with you there. Just from a user standpoint, like Instagram is a great place for high intent people.
Yeah, I would say I'm guilty of that too. Instagram is my POC, my platform of choice. I do most of my like shopping that's net new, like in terms of, I think I'm one of the many people who my full customer journey and buying experience sometimes is just on Instagram, right? It's like I see an ad, I visit the page. First, I look at the amount of followers to make sure it's like an actual legitimate brand. I look at engagement rate to make sure they don't have like, low engagement rates and it's a bunch of like bot or spam followers. I visit their website, I scroll, and then I just buy right there. So,
yep, that's me. That's me.
Instagram is great.
I think there was one day specifically where I realized how much I purchased through Instagram when I remember I came to an event and somebody complimented what I was wearing. And I was like, yeah, actually everything is from Instagram, the clothes, the everything going on. And I was like, I think I got my laptop from an Instagram. Like, I don't even like everything was from Instagram. And it's great. It's a good choice for most products, especially because it has like all of these updated product integrations. And the algorithm is constantly delivering results for such different things constantly. Like right now, the focus is on users with under 250K. That's what's being delivered organically on the platform, which is really powerful and helpful, especially whenever we're from marketers, as marketers trying to promote a brand, product, or service. It really helps us that they're looking to help people grow online, which is great. Of course, it's a bit challenging for us check-marked companies and brands with quite a few followers. It does become a bit of a challenge, but it's very rewarding nonetheless. That definitely brings me to my next point, which is, I can guarantee that all of us have bought multiple things on Instagram. I'm also definitely guilty of buying things on Amazon ads. Any Amazon ad that I get on any website, it's like immediately I am on that link. So for what you guys have seen, the market is saturated. It's not a mystery to anybody. There's products everywhere. So whether you're streaming or just actively searching on Google, there's so much information constantly. So how are you finding that you're able to stand out from an e-commerce perspective with products specifically? Right. So, all right, I'll let you take, Ben. Oh my gosh. Yes, Ben.
I can jump into it. Yeah, this is my zone. So, this is a great question. The way that whenever I'm talking to brands, like the 2 ways you can stand out, right, is one, obviously you need to have good brand awareness, and you can do that through marketing. The second thing, just kind of like what I want to focus on, is like building great products. And you can do this, either from like a quality standpoint, do you want to stand out on quality, or do you want to stand out on price or compete on price, right? From a quality standpoint, the nice thing about using data, and once again, I'm going to plug Partcl in here too, but being able to see what the market is actually responding to, not just like styles, not just types of products, but also colors, right? Like that's a big piece too. Some of these brands launch like I think of Lululemon launches like 1 million different colors for each and every product. And wouldn't it be nice to know which of those colors are performing? Wouldn't it be nice to know like which styles are actually performing, not just what you're seeing, but like what people are actually purchasing? And another piece of this too, especially in the apparel world, is making sure that you're up to date on trends. There's a couple of other great products out there. Like I think of NPD for kind of the retail space, Jungle Scout on Amazon. The issue you run into from a retail perspective with NPD is the reports, and they're typically, take a few months to build and then they're sent to you. And so you might be a little bit behind on trends. The nice thing about Partcl is, since we're pulling this data on a daily basis, is we can show you how many units are being sold down to the SKU, what the sales are down to the SKU. But even more important on the trend side is looking at rates sold and sell-through rate. So like if I'm looking at, 13 companies that are in my space, I can actually go in there and sort by rates sold, see which ones are selling more on a daily basis, and then comparing that to the sell-through rate. Like if it's a more mature product, it's likely going to have a low sell-through rate and a lot in inventory, because they know that they're going to be able to sell that product. They've been selling it for a while. They're not afraid to order a lot of inventory. So that's why you see that lower sell-through rate. Whereas on the flip side, if you're looking at a product that has lower amounts of volume in inventory and higher sell-through rates, to me, that says, hey, this is a newer product that they're testing out. They're not going to order a ton of inventory because they want to make sure it works before they order that inventory. So I can pinpoint these trends early on and get into those quickly. I think of like biker shorts that got really big last year. I was talking to a brand that didn't get into it until probably like 6 months after it had really been hot. And I was just thinking about like how much revenue they could have made had they got into that quicker. So pinpointing those trends, sooner rather than later can have a huge impact on revenue. And then on a pricing standpoint, like understanding who are your comps, right? Like if I'm an athleisure brand, but I don't want to price my products, a pair of leggings for $100 like Lululemon does, maybe I want to be kind of more like a Gymshark, which is more affordable version. Understanding what they're pricing their products at, understanding as they change prices, what happens to demand. Those are all really important data points, whether you're looking at competing on a price perspective or a quality perspective. So just to kind of like sum up here, data is important, quantitative data, qualitative data. The more data you have, the better decisions you can make to help you stand out in an oversaturated market.
Yeah, I think you couldn't have said it better at the end, right? Which is always focus on like the customer and start your strategy with the customer in mind. And with that, take a data-driven approach. And I think the keys for me is like, there's probably 4 to 5 things I think about. Is first, start with great quality products, right? Which I think you mentioned. I think the second thing is making sure it's very relevant. I think really strong creative is really, really important at any part of the customer journey. Personalization where possible, again, using AI and taking a data-driven approach, and then tie it all together, like because it's omnichannel, having a flawless customer experience. So I can give you a recent example. So every 3 years in December, I lease a new car, right? Like for me, immediately, I'm, in my 30s, I live in Los Angeles, a city. I remember seeing an ad for like a Subaru Outback where someone's driving in like a mountaintop, and I don't really go to Big Bear or Mammoth to go snowboarding. I do that like every 10 years. So immediately I'm like, okay, like, sure, maybe it's a great quality product, but it's not relevant. The creative doesn't really stand out because there's just a car driving in snow. So it's not really something that catches my eye. You've lost me, and it's clearly not personalized. So the customer experience doesn't matter because already with one ad, it kind of ruined it. But, living in LA, like driving through Beverly Hills, right? I see a billboard for Mercedes-Benz. They've got a new model out. It's a great quality product. It's relevant for me and my demographic. I go online, I get retargeted after like building my own car. I see a very personalized ad with like an email with my name. I go, and then my customer experience from there is flawless. Like I go online, I order the parts that I want. They have it in the store. I go to the store. There's a personalized experience there where they greet me. They already have the car that I want to test drive. And then before you know it, I'm out the door with my brand new lease car, right? So like I think about people who have great quality products, like everything, their offer, their advertising was very relevant. It was super creative, right? The advertisement that I actually saw when I was retargeted on YouTube pre-roll was someone driving in Los Angeles, like in the middle of downtown LA. So for me, it's almost like that experience and that brand experience and that customer journey for me just felt super personalized for me. Like every every stop along that customer journey felt like the ad was developed specifically for me. So that for me was like my most recent flawless omni-channel experience that actually got me to take an intended outcome. Whereas again, like the SUV driving in a mountaintop, like just lost me immediately.
That would be relevant for me because it's late March and it's snowing today. So
yeah, didn't speak to me at all. Like all the things that I just mentioned, like, just didn't stand out.
Completely relate to all of that, especially because I'm from Florida, but I live in Colorado now. And the amount of the difference in the ads that you get in Florida versus Colorado could not be more different. Like there was absolutely no similarities. And that it's even proves the importance for omni-channel approaches because each state, each demographic, each group, each audience needs a different thing from you. So that kind of also leads to my next question, should we be using AI in omni-channel and where does it make sense to apply it specifically? I think I'll let G start off with that one.
Yeah, so I started saying this years ago, but if the robots are going to take over, we should be friends with them. Like we should use AI in everything we can do as long as it makes sense. But I think AI plays a huge role in some of the things I just discussed, which is personalization and optimizing the entire customer experience across 5, 10, 20 channels. And I think the other thing that you mentioned earlier is data. And I think the one thing that AI does a really good job of is analyzing data in real time and just unifying your data about customers and products to inform your actual marketing campaigns and help you make the next best decision. I think the last thing it can do, and I'm sure you're going to speak on this, is pricing. And also just predicting channels that customers are actually going to be on and what their actual propensity to spend is. And I think you can do some really cool price testing there. But I think, the last part of it is just what people typically use AI for, which is automating like repeatable and scalable tasks. So I think those are probably the 3 to 5 things. I don't know how many I mentioned in terms of like how you should be using AI in your omnichannel marketing to lower your costs, drive efficiency, and ultimately get users to convert.
Yeah, I can say like AI, especially, I mean, I'm in the tech world. AI has been huge. Just like since ChatGPT came out, we've been able to develop like new products in the platform just using ChatGPT. So like the pricing tool that we use with machine learning uses ChatGPT. So essentially, pulling all the different data points for like products to help you price your product correctly. The other place it helps with is white space, right? So being able to integrate, having your product assortment in there, and then using data from the market to identify white space opportunities. And then also like other tools coming out because of AI, demand forecasting is going to be one that's coming out. Sentiment analysis will be another one too. So like these are processes that would take forever to do. Like we're scraping this information, but thanks to AI, like we can have that do it for us. So it just makes it a much quicker process and gives us the ability to act quicker, which ultimately in e-commerce is huge, especially in like the apparel space. Being able to act quick on trends, being able to collect data quickly and sort through it to come out with actionable insights is invaluable. So yes, AI is the future. It's here. We should use it. It's a great thing. And ultimately, I think it's going to help us all be more successful. So
yeah.
I love that. And I couldn't agree more. I'm also very biased because I'm using quite a bit of AI every day. It makes the admin things, the things that really anyone like could do, so much easier. And then also it gives you room to be specialized because in my experience, people are worried it's going to replace people. In my experience, if anything, you still need an expert to be running it for it to run like an expert device. So when I'm using it, it makes a lot of mistakes that, somebody who maybe doesn't have experience in that field would make. So that's what I've seen anyways. Of course, I have to say that I agree with you guys. I guess we'll see officially in the next quarter or 2 quarters, even year, months, what that's going to look like. And then that also leads me to my next point, which is, we've already been using so many different types of software in order to make quantitative and qualitative decision-making with marketing, with product development. And so for you guys, what you've seen, what primary metrics do you guys look at in analytics, and what have you guys been able to deduce from that information, and what decisions do you feel like are the most important to consider with those specific metrics?
G, do you want to take it first?
Yeah, I mean, I really think it depends on what the problem is that I'm trying to solve, right? Because like I think data is just a number. It's kind of the story that you're trying to tell that's what makes data really, really useful. So I guess like, if I have the challenge of, hey, we're not generating enough leads on Hawke Media's website, or let's say we're not driving enough sales from, let's say, our Facebook campaigns, I think the first thing I look at is, okay, well, natively in the platform, like, are we getting click-through rate? Like, are people actually engaging with the ads and like getting to our site, or is no one clicking on the ad? If no one's clicking on the ad, of course, we're not getting any sales. So we need to look at our target audience. We need to look at our copy and creative. We need to understand, like, hey, are we trying to promote a product with a lifestyle image that doesn't feature the product? Maybe that's a problem. And the other part of it is looking at your website, right? Is like, maybe you're getting a really, really high click-through rate and you have the best creative in the world. But if you're sending them to a destination where the landing page isn't loading, I mean, that's probably a problem there. So I think, it's kind of backwards, right? Which is like, what is the problem I'm trying to solve? And then what are the metrics that I look at that'll really help me get to, kind of a next step there. But it's kind of a tough question to answer. Like, primary metrics we should be looking at, like, you should be looking at load time, you should be looking at bounce rate, you should be looking at key page views per session, right? Like, if you're a cause related, marketing offer and people aren't viewing the page that talks about your brand and what cause you actually stand for, and you sell a $5 or, $50 pair of socks, well, that's maybe part of the problem, is that people don't know why this pair of socks is worth $50. So, it kind of depends on the problem that I'm trying to solve. That really informs where I should be looking.
Yeah, I would say from the product research side of things, if I'm a brand and I'm looking at other brands in my space, using Partcl, at least, like, the main things I would be looking at is like, hey, they launched a new product. How much inventory did they launch with? And what does a sell-through rate look like? If they launched a product a week ago with 300 units and they sold out in the first couple of days, probably want to keep a close eye on that product. And likelihood is that brand is going to come out with much more inventory, and being able to watch that over time to make sure it continues to perform. Maybe it was just like, it went out quick because they did some sort of campaign and it was hot and people went in, they bought it. I want to make sure that that trend continues. The other piece I would look at is comparing, like, rates sold is important, right? I want to make sure that I'm comparing similar companies to my size. I mean, obviously, like, you can get a lot of great insights from Lululemon. But the thing is, like, Lululemon's massive and they have a brand name. People know who they are. They trust their products. Just because they launch something doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be successful for you, because it's Lululemon and people buy stuff from Lululemon. So understanding who you are, where you fit in the market, and comparing yourself with brands who are like that. So if I see a product from Lululemon and it's performing really well, I probably want to check some other brands too that maybe aren't as well known, to see if they have any similar products and see how well they're selling too. So like, in terms of metrics, rates sold on a daily basis, sell-through rate, unit volume, like, those are all, like, the three really important data points there. And not just looking at the overall product performance, but looking at how those different colors and sizes are performing, so I can have that information as I plan to launch a similar product.
I love that. Yeah. And you're so right. A lot of times whenever people are doing their product research to launch something, they're saying, well, Gymshark did this, so that's what I'll do. But Gymshark might have an audience that looks for those things, and your audience might be a little different. Like, I've seen specifically, there was I will call it an athleisure brand, because they did mostly yoga products. And they noticed a lot of people, there was a trend going around in like 2021 where a lot of people were purchasing biker shorts. I don't know if you guys saw this, but they released biker shorts. Well, they're traditionally known for yoga products. So biker shorts are not normally worn in yoga studios. So that product didn't sell. And there was a lot of shock, like, we need to get this product sold. And I was like, do we need to get it sold? Or should we just put it on sale and focus on actually advancing other products that are doing better, right? Like, do you care more about inventory or revenue? Like, that's what it comes down to, which is super difficult and challenging for a lot of companies to make decisions about, because, again, the market is saturated. So they're doing what they think is best based off of a market that's oversaturated. So it really is helpful when we have companies like Partcl, who I want to highlight really quickly, who help you make those decisions and make sure that when you have a launch, you're doing it with data, with information, and with a team behind you to ensure that those launches are successful. And so we are wrapping up here. And I really want to just say thank you, Ben and G, for joining. But before we leave, Ben, I'd love you to discuss a little bit. It looks like you guys are giving away 10% off of a demo with your product. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So couple of things actually we can do is one, if you guys do come in through Hawke, there's a 10% discount on the first year. Demo's free. So 100% off on that. And then in terms of like some actionable insights, the main thing I want to is like if someone speaks with us, I want to make sure if they don't walk away with the product itself, I want to make sure they walk away with actionable insights. So I am also putting together free market analysis reports. So we have a market trends and analysis piece of our platform where essentially I can type in a category and it pulls every single product that fits into that category, shows you high level revenue of the market, inventory trends, top products, pricing buckets, so on and so forth. So I'm happy to provide that for free for anyone who comes in through Hawke as well.
I love that. I love that. Well, the link is all in the description, everybody. And then also on our site, on G and I's on G and I's side on Hawke Media, we're also always giving away our free consultations to anybody who joins. And then on top of that, we also, for anyone who attended and registered through our email links, you guys will be receiving our book, The Hawke Method, with a discount code to make the book 99 cents. So an amazing deal. I have the book. G has the book. I mean, Ben, if you don't have the book, we got to send it to you. You know, we got to get that going. Yeah. It's really interesting. And I do like, there's like a little blurb about Eric and about the company. And it really helps, you know, people feel more comfortable with who we are and get to know us a little better. So I definitely say that if you haven't read it, you should read it. And then for any updates, feel free to check out Ben on the website. Again, that's in the description, or check us out at hawkemedia.com, also in the description. And I just wanted to thank everybody so much for coming. And I love the active comments here. Partcl the gift on giving. Oh my gosh, which is so funny. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And we hope to see you back again soon. Thank you so much, Ben, for joining. Thanks, G. And bye, everybody.
Hey, thanks, everyone.